I just finished reading the article by Bobby Sumner, and I wrote out a thing for it to print in our paper, and it just gripes my soul, man. Every time one of these little pipsqueaks wants to change the Bible, he goes and hides beside some other fellow and pleads him for an alibi. I mean, W.B. Riley was a good man, he corrected it. Spurgeon's a good man, he corrected it. Well, Dave was a good man, he committed adultery, and Noah's a good man, he got drunk. I mean, what's the deal, girls? I mean, these guys always talking about preaching against sin. Well, they can't stand to be preached against themselves. Their dirty, rotten sins. Old Spurgeon, Spurgeon stand up there, and Spurgeon saying, this Bible is the Word of God, you ought to read it. It's a sin and a shame if you don't read it. Ignorance this Bible is to God. God wrote this book. How precious should be to you, because God wrote every word. I bow to this book. He says that. And then in one of his sermons in 1885, when he's trying to prove eternal security, he makes the mistake of saying there's a better reading in the RV for Romans 8:1, because he's so anxious to prove eternal security, being a 5-point Calvinist. And once he does that, then these rascals grab what he said there and said, now that's the truth. Now let me show you something. I mean, people think I'm real negative, and critical and destructive. Now I'll show you something. I'll prove to you I am more positive and more constructive than any man in the United States who corrects that book. I'll prove it to you. I'll show you the meaning. Spurgeon says one time it's the Word of God, and the other time he corrects it. Question: which time was he telling the truth? Now, if you're positive, you know what you'll say? You'll say he told the truth the first time, and the next time the devil got him. Now, if you're a destructive critic, you know what you'll say? You'll say the second time when he corrected, that was the honest truth, that was the fact, and the other time was just a manner of speaking. Now, here's W.B. Riley. He says the King James Bible parachuted down from heaven. It's the only version they did alone of all the Bibles is infallible and inerrant. And a little bit later, many years after that, when Riley is in front of a bunch of scholars trying to put on a show, he says, well, I believe all the acceptable translations will do, and the RV and the ASV were done by very good translators and very good men. So he says that. Question: which time was he telling the truth? Fellow says both times. He couldn't have been telling the truth both times. There are two different sets of Bibles from two different sets of manuscripts from two different sets of people that have two different sets of opinions about the Bible. He ain't telling the truth both times. Which time is he telling the truth? I prefer the positive view. I say when the fellow said this, the Word of God, and believes it from cover to cover, that's when he's filled with the Spirit and speaking from God. Amen. And I say when he begins to correct it, that's his old nature, and that's the devil using him. See? So that's something for you to think about. And what these fellows do, they pick the destructive side, They pick that.